Hey guys, I hope you're having a beautiful day. My name is Kasim. I'm a 21-year-old entrepreneur, and in this video, we're going to dive into how I fixed my ADHD completely, forever. And what actually happened when I fixed my ADHD is that a month later, I was able to take my first ever business from zero to over 10K per month when I was 17. So the reason I'm making this video is because I've been talking to quite a lot of young entrepreneurs in the last few weeks. And one common problem that I've heard them all eventually say to me is, yeah, bro, I find it so hard to focus. I think I have ADHD. When I sit down to work, I can't really do anything. And I always end up going on my phone. I think it's just so many thoughts going through my head and I don't know what to do. And this reminded me that I had the same problem. For 6 or 7 months when I first started out, when I was 17, being an entrepreneur, started my first ever business, which was an agency. I always had this problem where whenever I go sit down to do work, the actual, and this when I say work, I actually genuinely mean the work that would actually move the boat forward and get me closer to making money, I would never actually be able to do that work. I would always procrastinate, I would go on my phone, I would switch tasks and whatever else. So in this video, we're going to dive into how I actually was able to solve that and realize what was actually happening and then go on to fix it forever. So the first step to actually fixing all of this and fixing your ADHD, and it may actually trigger you a little bit, but it's to realize that you don't actually have ADHD. And for the most part, for the majority of people that are actually watching this, I think all of you that are watching this, ADHD is not real. And when I say that, you may have been diagnosed with ADHD in the past, whatever it may be, and even a lot of you just self-proclaim that you have ADHD. But the problem is that you can now no longer use it as an excuse for you not getting the work done. Because think about it right now. Do you want to be someone who, let's say in 20, 30 years, when you maybe even on your deathbed, when you have your grandkids next to you, do you want to say to them, yeah, I could have been really successful, could have built a really big business, could have been a multimillionaire, but I didn't do it because I have ADHD. It's just a shame. You're going to use that as an excuse? Most likely not. All of you are going to be like, no, I'm not going to use that as an excuse. So, and the deeper reason as to why I'm saying this is because with anything in life, but especially something that you call, it's almost like a label that you say you have, and a label you have for yourself, and ADHD is one. Another one is procrastinator. So if you either call yourself a procrastinator or you say that you have ADHD, from now on, from today onwards, you are now making the decision to say from now on, you no longer have ADHD. You no longer are a procrastinator. You never say that to yourself. You never tell somebody else that you have this problem. You never even think about it. You try to just remove the thought from your mind from now on. And the reason is because our subconscious mind and our subconscious mind is actually the part of our mind that really controls the way we are in our day-to-day lives. And our mind doesn't know the difference between objective reality, what's actually real, and what we tell it or what we think. So if we keep telling ourselves and if we keep thinking that we have ADHD, the more we'll believe it. And the more we believe it, the more that our brain will actually think that's what we have. And then what will happen is that we will actually experience the symptoms of ADHD a lot more. And we'll actually think that this is what's happening to us. So the first step to actually get rid of ADHD is now making the decision for yourself. And I know it may sound a bit weird, but you have to tell yourself right now that you do not have ADHD. ADHD is not real. And even if you have been diagnosed in the past, you are no longer going to use it as an excuse for you not being the person you need to be to get things done. So that is the first step. The second step is to actually realize what's actually happening when you're experiencing these symptoms of ADHD or symptoms of procrastination. What's actually going on? So I'll take it in my example because I obviously went through this when I was 17. It took me like 6 or 7 months to figure it out, but eventually I figured it out. So what was actually happening when I would sit down to work, right, and I do one of those like really important tasks. So for me, for example, I was running an agency. And when it comes to an agency, one of the most important tasks, the task that's most linked to actually making money, is doing outreach. Is trying to reach out to prospective clients and get them to book in a call with you. Now, whenever it actually come to doing that task of doing outreach, whenever I sit down to do that work, I would literally feel paralyzed and I wouldn't actually know what's happening. But every single time I sit down to do that work, that is when the procrastination would kick in. Obviously, procrastination, what I mean by that, the symptoms were switching tasks, going from task to task, not being able to focus on that one task for hours on end, going on my phones, watching YouTube videos, needing to have, literally at some point, I needed to have a podcast or some Netflix show or whatever it may be, just there on the side while I was working. All these different things that you call procrastination even could be something as bad, which I have experienced in the past, which is something like watching porn or just fapping or doing any bad habit in general. Whenever you're doing any of these bad habits, from now on, you need to realize what's actually happening. Now, I'll take it an example of doing this work, and I'll take it an example of what was actually happening for me, because I'm sure what happened for me is happening to you too. Hey guys, just cutting in here. If you're enjoying the video so far and finding it valuable, make sure you go click subscribe and like the video just now. But I also want to personally invite you to join my new free community on School called the New Era of Entrepreneurs. Inside of this, I'm going to create exclusive trainings and walkthrough videos on first, how to get started with building your own growth partner agency, which is the business model that I started when I was 18 as a complete beginner and scaled it to over 50k per month in the first 6 months. And obviously, of course, still run that to this day. And number two, trainings and walkthrough videos on how to level up your mindset and become the best version of yourself to create your dream life just like I have, alhamdulillah. And you can also watch me build and scale my new growth partner agency to 50k per month live. I'll be showing you guys every single step that I take to do it and holding nothing back at all. As well as that, of course, you're also going to be able to jump on calls with me where you can ask me pretty much anything about anything, and most importantly, become a part of a family of like-minded winners from all around the world that keep you accountable and become your brothers for life. I know this is exactly what you dreamt of having, so the link to join, again, completely for free, no payments at all, will be in the description of this video. I'll see you inside over there. Enjoy the rest of this video. Now, what happened was, when I was sitting down to do this task, at the time I had a big goal in my life, which was the biggest goal I had was to hit 10k per month by the time I turned 18. Now, this goal was so important to me, and I thought this was literally like, if I don't hit this goal, I don't know what I'm going to do with myself. That was kind of like how deep it was, and I'm sure the same, is happening for you guys too. And I put so much importance on this goal that unknowingly I then created a fear around this goal. So I unknowingly, in my subconscious mind, whenever I would sit down to do the work that would actually get me there, I would think, what if I don't get there? What if this work doesn't actually get me there? What happens if I get there? What do I do then? Whatever it may be. And what was actually happening when I was sitting down to work is that the fear that I had inside of me was being triggered. And when something like a fear is being triggered, what happens is your mind seeks something called an emotional home. Now, an emotional home for all of us is, especially when we're starting out, is something like switching tasks, is something like going on our phones and scrolling through Instagram or TikTok, is going on YouTube and watching videos, is going on Netflix and watching shows. That is what our emotional home is. And why? Because the emotional home is something that makes us feel comfortable, because obviously that when that fear is triggered, our mind feels uncomfortable. We start to feel kind of like not really, we start to feel uneased. And when that happens, your mind tries to go to the first thing that it knows that gives it that quick comfortability. And usually it's something like your phone, Instagram, Netflix, YouTube, whatever it may be, because it gives you that quick hit of dopamine. So that's actually why you now know why you actually go on your phone. Actually, any bad habit you have, like I said, even if it's something as bad as porn or whatever it may be, the only reason that's coming up in your life, the only reason you're doing those things, those bad habits, anything bad that you don't want in your life, is because something is being triggered. And when I say something, of course, we talked about a fear, but overall what I'll say is that you're either living in the past or the future. So when I say future, that is when the fears come up. So anything in the future, you're thinking about what may happen in the future. So a fear, a limiting belief, a doubt, whatever it may be. So anything about to do with being scared or limiting your beliefs or having a doubt over what you're doing, that is you living in the future. Now, living in the past, what that means is that the most important one is going to be traumas. So trauma is what I mean by that, and you may kind of not have the right understanding of what a trauma really is, but honestly what it really is just an unresolved issue. That is something that's happened maybe over a long time, over your childhood. Could be because of the way your parents treated you, because of the way they talk to you, because of the way your teachers talk to you, because of the way your friends talk to you, because of what you're bullied for, wherever it may be. Something from your childhood most likely is coming up and being triggered. And for me, the one that was being triggered for me quite a lot, and this is also played into the fact that why I procrastinated so much, was the feeling that I wasn't good enough. Now, this feeling came from upon my whole childhood of the way my parents talked to me in certain ways made me think that I wasn't good enough to do what I wanted to do. The way my teachers talked to me made me think that I wasn't good enough to do what I wanted to do. I was bullied for certain things, made me feel like I wasn't good enough to do what I wanted to do. So then, because that happened, and I never really resolved that issue, I never actually addressed what was happening, obviously because it was happening in my childhood and it happened for so many years. Now in my adult life, when I'm sitting down to do work, especially when it's the kind of work that I want to be good enough to do, and that, well, almost like it's something that I really want to happen in my life, which is obviously hitting 10k per month or having a successful business. I deep down think that I'm not good enough to actually make this happen. I'm not good enough to do this work properly. I'm not good enough. Let's say, for example, it's outreach, trying to send a client, maybe it's a beginning call with them. If I do this outreach, I don't think I'm good enough to actually sell them on the call. What if they, what about limiting beliefs wise? Let's say, what if I don't have any case studies? What if I don't have any testimonials? What if haven't really worked in the past with any clients? And all the stuff you pile on to the what should be simple task of just getting some easy work done, where you're literally, if you think about it objectively, all you are doing is sitting down on your laptop and pressing the buttons, typing in words, pressing send, and that's it. For example, when it comes to outreach, and that's the same to do with any really task. To be honest, the only reason you think it's a hard task or a big task is because you're attaching and you're piling on all these past and the future things. And also another past thing as well, which I have seen a lot of guys go through, is a judgment. So usually it's a judgment of themselves. It's kind of like an anger for themselves that they haven't yet got to where they want to be, haven't yet done the tasks they need to do, and they're kind of like they're hard on themselves. They're judging themselves for the fact they haven't done it, and that's also one thing that gets triggered quite often when you're sitting down to do work. So that's the most important step, is to obviously first you've now realised that ADHD isn't real. Second, you've now realised what's actually happening when you're sitting down to do work and why you experience these procrastination habits or these symptoms of ADHD. Now the next step is to actually fix it. Now that you become aware of it, awareness or consciousness is the first step to everything, to solving anything in life. This is being aware of the problem. Now that you're aware of it, now let's go on to actually fixing it. So the first step to actually fixing it is actually catching yourself whenever you're actually experiencing, in the moment you're experiencing any of these symptoms or just any bad habit in general, but especially when it comes to lack of focus or switching from your work to your phone, or maybe even if, for example, when you're sitting down to work, you feel stressed out, you start overthinking, you start having bad thought patterns. It's not always to do with things you're doing physically. Sometimes it's also just to do with what's happening in your mind. So thought patterns, bad thought loops, whatever it may be. So when you are experiencing those things, you have to now, because your level of consciousness and your level of awareness has now been raised to realize that this is what's actually happening, you now need to, whenever this happens for you, even today when you go on to work, you now need to catch yourself in that moment, what's actually happening for you. So the way you do that, the way that I do it, is I take a journal out. So I journal and I almost like document that moment. So let's say, for example, right now, I was sitting down doing a task, doing my outreach for my agency, trying to sign clients, and in a certain moment, I feel like I want to go on my phone. I feel like I'm kind of getting stressed out. I feel like I want to switch tasks. In that moment is now we need to pull your journal out, keep it next to you, bring it out, get your pen, and journal in that moment what you're experiencing. So what I mean by that is write kind of what you're feeling, what you're thinking about, what exact task you're doing, what emotions are coming up for you. And when you document that to the best of your ability, the next step now, step 3, is either in that moment or later on in the day when you come back to it, if you keep on doing work and then maybe, for example, come back to it in the evening, is the first thing you need to do is do something called a breath work. Now, the reason you're doing a breath work is because what you're going to do now is dive deeper into what you documented and such, why it's actually happening. So before you do that, to actually make it productive and to actually dive deeper and find the reasons as to why things are happening, which is going to be finding the fears, finding the traumas that are coming up for you that are being triggered, you need to first be in a state in your mind where you're actually able to do that. And breath work, for me, I've done it, I've really found it to be one of the most powerful tools that I've ever had in my life, that I still do that I do every day. And especially in this kind of a situation where you need to dive deeper into your brain, a breath work. Now, when I say to do a breath work, I obviously don't mean do it yourself. Type up on YouTube 15-minute guided breath work to feel calm, something like that. Just do that breath work, try your best to obviously get into it and really focus on the breath. And when you do that breath work, it will push you into a certain state, and it will make you feel a certain level of calm, where when you approach and then when you go into the next step of the process, which is then to come back to what you journaled about and then journal deeper. And the way you do that is by just keep asking yourself why do I feel this way, where is this coming from, where is this emotion coming from, why does this certain task make me feel this certain way where I want to procrastinate. Keep going deeper and deeper and deeper, as deep as you can, deeper than you ever have before. Dive really deep into and past just the surface level thoughts you have. And when you're in that certain state, because of breath work, it will allow you to think a lot more logically. It will allow you to think a lot more stoically. So instead of you kind of believing that this is just a problem for you and you don't know why it's happening, you will actually be able to see what's happening in your life a lot more logically. So when you dive deeper into it and keep asking yourself why, also as well, you'll be able to access certain parts of your mind that you wouldn't be able to access in your normal state that you normally experience life in. So when you do breath work, you're able to maybe, for example, remember things. I actually remember why I'm scared about this. I remember why, maybe a trauma in the past. I actually remember that my parents didn't really talk to me well, so I don't really feel like I'm good enough to do things. I remember that I got bullied about this thing, or now I remember that I've been really hard on myself about this one thing. All this different stuff will start to come up for you, and that is one of the most important steps, because when you truly internalize and you see for yourself that the only reason as to why you are procrastinating is because of this one thing, because of this fear, because of this limiting belief, because of this trauma that's being triggered, and you kind of you dive deeper into that. What really is the fear? Where is it really coming from? You keep asking yourself why is the most important question to ask yourself, because when you keep going deeper into why, it will always, especially when it comes, for example, to a fear, you will always come to a point where you realize Is it really that bad? Am I really that scared? No, I'm probably not. Like, for example, if you think about a fear, let's say, for example, not hitting 10k per month by the time you set for. For example, for me, I wanted to hit 10k per month by the time I turned 18. Let's say that didn't happen. What loss did I have? If I really think about it logically, which you're able to do after you do something like breathwork, what's wrong? All that's going to be that's going to happen is that I've gained experience, that I've gained knowledge, that I've put in the work, and maybe yes, 10k may have not happened yet, but now I know that what mistakes I've made, so then I can go on to make it. It's a lot of the times we live in such a bubble in our heads where we create so many unneeded, unnecessary fears and whatever it may be. And also, one thing that's really important I want you to realize now is, and this may be one of the key takeaways of this video, is there's a quote or a saying where we suffer 99.9% in imagination and 0.1% in reality. And what that means is, in my life, I've experienced this because obviously in my life, I've had so many fears and so many limiting beliefs because I wanted to push myself so hard in life at a young age. And obviously, I'm 21 now and I've been in the game for about 4 years. And in those last 4 years, I've tried to push myself so hard in every aspect of life that I've unknowingly created so many fears and limiting beliefs and whatever it may be. And what I came to realize is that with every single limiting belief and fear or trauma that I may had, and maybe not traumas, but especially limiting beliefs and fears and doubts, they only exist in my imagination. I'm the only reason they exist. I'm making them exist by telling myself I have these things. And what I realize is that none of these actually exist in objective reality. Like I said, I'm just making them exist. And that is the same for any fear you have in life, any limiting belief you have in life. None of them are actually real. None of them, if you truly logically ask yourself, is this, do I really have this fear? Am I really scared about not having 10k per month? Then you'll say no. But unknowingly, that fear is sitting inside of you, deep inside of you, where you're not actually able to realize you have that fear in your normal state in the day-to-day life because so many thoughts are going through your head, whatever it may be. But when you actually dive deeper and you realize that this is what you're actually scared about, and then you dive deeper into where this fear is coming from, and is it actually real? Does it actually exist? Am I really scared about this? You will always come to the point where you realize, no, I'm not really scared about this. And then what happens is you then let it go. It's almost like a weight off your shoulders. You then just say, I'm not scared about this anymore. You think about it much more logically and stoically, and you think, this is not my life anymore. I decide from now on, I no longer have this fear. I decide from now on, I have addressed this trauma, and it's no longer an issue in my mind. So all these different things, you will always come to the point when you're journaling about it, where you will realize that you just need to let it go, and that's it. There's nothing more to it. It's not a big problem. It's not a big, there's nothing more that you have to do. You just have to look at it logically, stoically, and think, okay, this is what it is. Am I really scared about it? Am I really traumatized by it? No, it's fine. Let me let it go. So now that you've brought it up to the awareness stage, where you're actually aware of what's happening, now you're able to kind of like in your subconscious mind, just let it go. So it will no longer have an effect in your subconscious mind. But saying that, obviously, that is the first big step that will obviously, for me anyway, that gave me, even when I did that with so many different times in my life, that was like, for me, the big step that really allowed me to let go of these things, which then allowed me to be the person I wanted to be, take action I want to take action, let go of my procrastination, whatever it may be. But obviously, we've had these fears and whatever for so long now that it's going to come back up. It's going to be triggered again and again and again. And obviously the game now is to be able to catch yourself day to day. Every single day from now on, you're much more conscious of it now. What I would recommend is that you do a breath work in the morning before you start your day, especially before you start work, so that when you're doing work, you're much more conscious of the fact that you have already decided to let go of these fears. So even if they do come back up, because they will, because you've had them for so long now, so it will take a bit of time to let go of them properly. You need to do something like breath work to then, when you're doing work, you catch yourself a lot easier. Your level of consciousness is what they call it. A level of awareness is so high that whenever you're experiencing these things from now on, you realize that, oh, this is happening again. Let me just let go of it. It's fine. But whereas before, when this was happening, you almost like you let it take control of you. So that's the big step from now on. Is every single day the game now is to realize that when you're doing work, now that your level of consciousness is so raised by doing things like breath work, and obviously by first realizing this whole thing to begin with, you're now able to catch yourself day to day. And the more you document it, the more you come back to it, you'll realize more and more things will come up. You'll have more fears that you didn't realize you had, more limiting beliefs you didn't realize you had, more traumas you didn't realize you had, whatever it may be. You just have to keep doing the same process over and over again until you truly let go of all these fears. And what will happen, what you'll experience is that life ends up becoming a lot less friction. You won't really experience friction anymore. Whereas maybe right now, and for the past year, 2 years, maybe your whole life, you've experienced so much friction towards your work, towards whatever it is you want to do in your life. When you start to begin this process of first becoming aware of what's happening, diving deeper into it, diving deeper into why it's happening, what's being triggered, the fear, limiting belief, the trauma, and then letting go of that trauma or that fear, limiting belief, that is almost like the game you have to play for in the next 1, 2, 3 years, maybe the rest of your life. But I think for me, it's only taken 2, 3 years, and I believe that I've let go of the majority of fears that I had. But obviously, we create new fears inside of us unknowingly all the time. That is just the game. You just, whenever you are experiencing any bad habits, any things you want to let go of, any things you don't want to be doing, any bad thought patterns as well, any bad general bad feelings, when that's happening, you now have to realize that it's happening for a reason. It's not just happening for no reason. So the reason is that something is being triggered. Something inside of you that you have not yet resolved or let go of is being triggered. So now the game is every single day, be much more accountable with yourself. Document that. Come back to it. Do breath work every single day to put yourself into a state. When I talk about states, I can make a whole video about this certain thing on itself, but there's two types of states that we can live in as humans. Overall type of states. So the state that every one of us lives in, the majority of us lives in the majority of our lives, when we haven't realized this yet, is called a suffering state. Now, this is any negative state. A state of fear, state of judgment, state of anger, state of whatever it may be. Anything negative is a suffering state. And what's happening when I say that we are being triggered, and that's when we want our emotional home, what's happening is that we are triggered to be in a suffering state. And when we're in a suffering state, it's not like we genuinely feel like we're suffering. It's just what's happening, what the name for it is. But when we're in a suffering state, that is when we experience life to have so many roadblocks, to have so many bad things, to have so much friction towards doing what we want to do, towards being the way we want to be, towards being happy in general. That is because we're in a suffering state. And in a suffering state is when all this stuff comes up. But then the other type of state that you can live in is called a beautiful state. It's a state of love, gratitude, joy, compassion. Any good state in general, any good feeling in general is overall a beautiful state. And the game is, like I said, the game is obviously catching yourself, but also the game is to, when you realize that you have now been triggered to be in a suffering state, the game now every single day that you can play is, okay, now I realize that, and I've caught myself in a suffering state. Now let me do something that will push me to be back in the beautiful state. And for me, like I just said, I gave you one of the most powerful tools to use to push yourself into a beautiful state, which is breath work. Obviously, there's a lot more things, and I can make a whole 1 hour video on this by itself. I don't want to go too deep into it in this video, but breath work, I'm just going to give you that one most powerful one because it's the easiest, most powerful one to do every single day, no matter what's happening. Whenever you feel yourself from now on being in a suffering state, that's you've been triggered by your work, you've been triggered by somebody else, you've been triggered by a bad thought, you've been triggered by whatever it may be. Now the game is, okay, I realize now that I'm in a suffering state. Become aware of that. You do that by journaling more and more, because journaling is a reflection of your brain. So it's almost like you're thinking, but you're thinking on a paper. That's like a more powerful way of thinking. And now when you're conscious of it, now the game is, okay, now that I know I'm in a suffering state, what can I do to push myself into a beautiful state? And it can literally be a case of doing breath work for 10 minutes, and that can be the reasons to why you're in a beautiful state. And when you're in a beautiful state, you're then able to take action and do your work in a way where you've never done it before. And you're able to access something called the flow state, especially when it comes to work. There's something called the flow state where you experience life in almost like tunnel focused vision, where anything that you kind of like, you don't have all these thoughts running through your brain. You don't have all these like fears coming up for you. Even if you do get triggered, you're able to kind of like, push that aside in the same moment, so it doesn't take control of you. And that's when you can experience life for what it's truly meant to be. You can focus on one task for hours on end. You don't need to get up. You don't need to go to the toilet. You don't need to eat. You have no like problems in your life. You go to the gym. You do whatever it is you want to do, and it just feels good. There's no more friction towards doing it, and that is what the way life should be experienced, and that is the way life is experienced in something called a beautiful state. So there's a lot more that I can dive into. I didn't want to make this video too long. I'm sure it already is long, but I hope you find this valuable. I hope this all made sense. And what actually I'm going to do is I'm going to make a full training, like a detailed training on exactly the exact steps, the exact things that I would write, the exact journal prompts that I would use, the exact breathworks that I would use to do all this properly. First to begin with, and also then day to day what I do. I'm going to put this all inside of my new free community. It's called the New Era of Entrepreneurs. It's the community where it's the kind of thing that I always wanted when I was in your position, when I was starting out. It's a place where I'm just going to create so much value in training, in the form of trainings, in the form of videos, in the form of whatever, all different stuff. And also as well, you can jump on call with me too. So for example, let's say you have been experiencing this thing, you feel like you have ADHD. If you ask me a question on a call and say, bro, I've been experiencing this, what do I do? We can have the same conversation. I can tell you exactly what to do in person on that call. But obviously as well, I'm going to be creating so much stuff, so many trainings around how to level up your mindset to become the person you want to be, but also as well how to build a business that I run, which is called a growth partner agency, that was able to scale from 0 to over 50k per month in 6 months when I first started it. So if you want to join that, it's completely for free, like I said, no payments, nothing whatsoever. The link will be in the description of this video. Just click that link, go ahead and sign up, and I'll let you in. And you're going to be able to access all the trainings that I put together. I put it up on screen right now, kind of the things that are already in there. But for me, this is like everything that I could have dreamt of having when I first started out. So I'm going to go ahead and make a really detailed training to put inside of there right now. I hope this video first gave you that kind of belief now that you can let go of your ADHD and you can be the person you want to be and take action you want to take action. But I'm going to put a detailed training in there for you to actually know exactly what to do, the exact steps to take to properly get rid of it. So guys, much love. I will see you in the next video and also see you inshallah inside the free community. See you soon.